Right now, we're very happy to have a special guest in our studio right now, somebody that everybody knows, and that is Channel 3 meteorologist Keith Thompson. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Nice to have you here. Also, our Brandon James joins us too. Good morning, Brandon.
Yeah.
Been a little while.
You guys actually worked together over at Channel 3 a little bit, didn't you?
A long time ago. Well, I don't know what's a long time. It's a relative term.
Well, 30 years is.
I think it's been about
probably 10 years.
Yeah,
maybe a little more. Yeah, something like that. 10 years ago. It's funny because when you've been at a place anywhere for that long, your definition of long time is what's a long time? It's like 10 years ago that was nothing, but that's a long time.
Yeah, and we were just talking off the air too, I mean, how long are you going to do this, and you remarked, well, it's kind of like a marathon race runner, you're tooling along, you're not really thinking about the finish line, you're just going. Yeah,
because I think if you think about the finish line, you're going to start, you're going to get sort of distracted, let me say. And so, I don't know, I mean, it's fun. It's a great gig, and so I don't see right now why you wouldn't want to keep doing it.
You came to Kalamazoo to Channel 3 in April of 1989.
89, yeah.
Man.
So I get to count the 80s as a decade, do
I? Yeah, I guess so. Did you have big hair then? No.
You know what? No, I had matte hair. It was like AstroTurf hair. When I look back on it was like those old pictures. It's like I literally had somebody before come up and pull my hair, thinking that it was not real. But it's like, no, it just looks like turf. And it was, of course, a different color then. I don't know what happens when you get that white hair,
Well, and of course, the anchors, especially the female anchors back in the 80s had the big hair and all that stuff.
Yeah, giant hair.
Who were the anchors when you came there?
Well, when I started, it was Cindy Dole, and she moved to the evenings quickly. We started in April. It was April 24th. I started on April 10th of 89. The show went on. It was for the morning newscast, and it went on April 24th. We had 2 weeks of rehearsals to get it all ready to go. Remember, we didn't have the assistance of computers like we did today.
Right.
It's like, yes, I don't predate computers necessarily, but
they just weren't used in media that much.
No, and so it took a lot of people to put on a newscast. And so it took a lot of rehearsals to get us all on the same page. We had never worked before together. And so it took us 2 weeks. So we went on April 24th. And Cindy Dole was the first person who I worked with. And then she moved up to the evenings to work with Barry Shanley. And then that's where they hired Judy Marquis in. And so it was me and Judy there for a while. Jamie Bowl came in along the way. So for some of your listeners who were watching 25 years ago, you'd probably remember some of those names. And so there were a few other people along the way.
I think before you, there was a guy there, George Elliott.
George Elliott. Oh, yeah, George Elliott. And, I still sometimes get questions about George. But, of course, I was bombarded with questions about George when I first got here because he hadn't been gone for very long. And the interesting thing is I watched George Elliott from Florida because I was at a television station in Florida before I came here and noted his unique personality before I came up here. And I had no idea that he had worked here until everybody was asking me about George Elliott. But yeah.
He did have a unique personality. I think he went to the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
And I had no idea whether he is now.
I think now, the last I saw anyway, I think he works for the National Weather Service at an office in North Carolina, I believe it is.
Cushy government job.
I'm not going to say that about the Weather Service guys because they have a rotating schedule. So sometimes they have to work like weird shifts and they don't get to, they have odd shifts.
Well, and you do that too. I mean, if something pops up, you have to be there. And that's been that way for 30 years. So.
Well, and you know that because in broadcasting, you don't really, you get to choose your hours and they all sort of stink. So it's like you get to choose which bad shift you want and then you're still on call. But it's still a great, broadcasting I think is a great career and it's changed obviously quite a lot.
In 89 we had one computer and that was what they used to schedule the commercials with. And we didn't do anything else.
I interned, to go back even further, I interned back in the early 80s in television. And at that time, it was in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. And there was a news reporter and a photographer there who used film. And so that sort of makes me a dinosaur. That I actually saw a film chain, where they would shoot film, not video, which of course video now it's all digital and on chips and things. And so I feel like I've sort of have spanned different genres of the media there.
Sure, for a long time, TV stations used Betamax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything was on Beta, and Beta didn't last too long in the homes. Went to VHS.
Right.
But TV stations did that for a long, long time before digital came along.
Oh, yeah, because you had the videotape, and it was measured by how thick the tape was, or how wide the tape was. You had 2-inch video, and then we had 1-inch video. Now, whenever I came onto the scene, we shot on 3/4-inch video, and then Beta was 1/2-inch, which wow, that's so cool, to be 1/2-inch. And then you had the Beta was in the camera, was actually in the camera. Now, when I was an intern, and even in my first job in television, we had to slug around these video cassette recorders that were looped to the camera by a giant coax cable. And so a photographer would have the camera on his left shoulder and the recording device, hanging off of his right shoulder. It's just such a different time. And if I start talking like that, waxing about the old days, then I catch myself thinking, it's like, man, you are old.
Things change fast. Now, you mentioned, styles and personalities. I remember that guy at 41 for a while, Jeff Tanchak. He very animated and, just very odd delivery. I would say that your delivery has been more of a genuine guy you can trust, steady 30-year.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you don't resort to gimmicks or crazy stuff to get ratings. I'd say the only thing that's not genuine and that I've noticed about you is that when you're not on camera, you dress more casually and more like a regular guy.
Like now?
Well, yeah. I mean, the first time I met you, you had jeans on. And I was like, wait a minute, is this the guy?
Well, the funny thing to me is, I think to me, I don't do it on purpose. I think it's very fortunate that I believe is an asset, though, where I just don't believe that there's a personality that's on television that doesn't exist off television.
Yeah.
And it makes it, in broadcasting, it's a heck of a lot easier if you're just yourself and that you're not somebody different when you turn on the microphone or you turn on the camera, because then it's easy. You don't have to be one person or the other. And, I guess I never thought of the weather person as being like a clown, and I never wanted to have to, wear the big red nose or something like that and jump up and down to get people's attention. And I think that, I actually was a news reporter in my first job and did weather on the weekend. And I think that bringing sort of more of that journalism, what I would call anyway, more of a sober attitude.
Well, because people trust and depend on you, you wouldn't expect Walter Cronkite to be the clown.
Well, exactly. And I feel like with weather, I just think people just want to know what the weather is. And certainly in times of storms, like we had this morning anyway, I think that they want to feel like that they can trust you. And I just think that not being the clown is a better way.
Yeah, let the sports guy do that.
Of earning the trust. That's right. There'll be somebody else who can be the clown. And I fortunately haven't, gone down that path, nor have I been asked to in my career, which is very fortunate, because I know in some cases, some people, that's what they're asked to do. And I've never been asked to do that.
Well, I've always tried to just be me as well. I don't try to be somebody different. Unfortunately, though, you are a person that comes off as more of an even keel. You're usually the same guy. That's harder for me to do. Maybe it's I don't know what it is, but still, a lot has changed in technology, but the job is still kind of the same. That's trying to let people know what's coming. This morning was a little bit of a departure. Usually we get the severe weather in the afternoon or at night. Right,
and it was a little bit, I have to say, I would say a little bit unexpected. Let's say at 6 o'clock yesterday evening, I really didn't think that we had a big threat for any kind of severe weather. But I know last night at 11 o'clock, midnight, I was watching those storms down in Missouri. And I hope that, I haven't seen anything other than just the news blurbs today coming out of Jefferson City, for example. But I know that the tornado watch had been issued that went as far north as Gary, Indiana, let's say, and I think close to South Bend by about midnight. And I thought, wow, that's getting a little too close for comfort. And those storms sort of held together a little bit more. And I know that I've seen some pictures of damage from the Coldwater area.
Yeah, they had a 2-hour delay from school this morning because of all the damage down there. They needed to
and
clean
you know
some
what
of it up.
you talked about the timing too, because typically the heating of the day is a major factor, and that's why it's more likely that we would have that in the late afternoon or early evening. But with these particular storms, if you think about it, how warm it was outside, I know last night, thinking, wow, we haven't really lost a lot of heating. I mean, with low temperatures expected to be in the mid-60s, that's more like mid-July. So this idea that just because it's dark means we lost our heating, we didn't lose a lot of it. And so I think that sort of left the environment primed for storms.
Yeah, I noticed that when I went to bed last night. It's like, darn it all, it's too warm.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Our typical low in the middle of July, I think, is around 63 degrees. And I know last night, whenever I left work at midnight, it was in the neighborhood of 65.
Yeah,
so
68 when I went to bed last night.
Yeah,
and it was not comfortable. But this storm this morning was a little different, too, in a couple of ways. One, recently, with the stuff coming up from the south, seemed awfully slow moving. And, will it ever leave? This stuff, man, is just,
it's out.
It crossed the state very quickly. But there was an odd thing I wanted to ask you about this morning is just about 5 o'clock when it really started to get into our area, I looked and there was, it formed this big swirl. It looked like a hurricane around South Bend or whatever. And then all of a sudden it straightened out and became a line again and moved eastward.
Well, sometimes you can have what we would call like little, they're little vortexes that can generate in thunderstorms like that. I mean, and you can see that sometimes either in radar data or even in cloud data, which you wouldn't have been able to see necessarily visible cloud data, let's say at 5:30 in the morning, because you wouldn't have the light of day. But you can see actually some of the curvature and some of the circulation going on within a particular, let's say, thunderstorm cell or a complex. If it's big enough, it can even actually create a little mini low, and you can see that happening. And those are interesting features to note when you're looking on the radar. That's typically a sign that it's packing a punch. It's packing a bit of a punch.
It did pack one this morning. Weather, I should probably let Keith Thompson do it, but no, he does it enough. Today, gradually clear it. You can tell me if you agree with it.
I agree with that part.
Gradually clearing today, high about 73. Could get a little windy, 15 to 20 out of the west, maybe up to 30. Then tonight, skies will clear, and the temps will drop a lot lower than last night, down to 49. Friday, increasing cloudiness, low to mid 70s, and then first chance of rain looks like Friday night 60%, and looks like Saturday 60%, and Sunday, I don't know what the percentage is. What do you think about Sunday?
I think I gave it a 40, and I know it's like, well, what does that mean? And to me, it's sort of confidence levels. It's like I'm more confident that we'll have showers and thunderstorms on Saturday, a little less so on Sunday. Sometimes with that, it's the clarity. It's like you get a little more clarity. I know it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a meteorologist to tell you that, but when you get closer to the event, your forecast models actually give you a little bit more clarity. And right now, I think there's enough to say that we have a pretty good chance of seeing scattered showers and storms on Saturday, less so on Sunday and on Monday.
Well, Sunday there's a lot of Memorial Day activities,
Yes.
the Fort Custer ceremony at 2, so we're hoping it'll clear out enough for that and some of the other things that are happening. Temperature right now is 64 degrees, cloudy skies. So it seems to me now, a lot of times you guys have always taken the criticism that, it's science, are you kidding me? They're wrong all the time, It seems like you're wrong a lot less, and you're right a lot more, and I'm thinking that technology is helping.
Yeah, it would be foolish to take credit, for it's technology, and that's exactly it. You're right. The technology has improved incredibly, and it's, of course, coincides with the improvements in computer technology, let's say, for example. The models are so much better now. And so it's not me, and I never thought that it was to begin with. I mean, back in the 90s, let's say, there was a lot more intuition, I think, that went into it, a lot more just like, well, this is what I think, or there was just a lot more, I don't know. The models, I think, are so much more definitive right now, and you can go out a little bit further with them than you could before with a little bit more confidence. But to me, I've always said you live by the forecast model and you die by the forecast model. But these days, particularly, so much more often correct than it is incorrect. But you know what people are going to remember? They're going to remember when it's wrong.
Right, sure.
They're not going to remember when it's right. And I understand that. That's
Well,
part of the business.
And it's human nature. It's like a car dealer told me a long time ago. He said, Tim, I can sell 30 cars and, 29 of them work perfect. I never hear from any of them ever again. But the one car that has problems, that's the guy. Yeah. But, the other thing, too, is, spotters, or not even spotters, but just anybody can take a picture and text it to the National Weather Service or Channel 3 or WBCK, and bam, there's what it looks like in real time.
I had pictures this morning, and they were in the daylight, and I got them, I think, on my phone at through a Twitter account, at 7:15 this morning, of trees and power lines down in Coldwater. And so then, you pass that along on your social media pages or something like that, and sort of keep all that information flowing. But you're right. I mean, that would have been something, let's just say even 20 years ago. I wouldn't, you might have heard about that or something, but it would have been a little while. You would have to see some video or pictures coming from there before you would actually see this tree and these power lines down. And like I said, these pictures that I got this morning were from daylight. So it had to have been, I would say, 6:45, 7 o'clock, something like that. And there they are on my phone at 7:15.
Sure.
And so that helps quite a lot, because it's one thing to say, oh, we got some trees and power lines down here in Battle Creek. It's another thing where it's like, look at this oak that is turned over. It's like, wow, that actually, sort of shows you those are some strong winds. So that's very helpful as well.
Yeah, and growing up, you could be out in the middle of nowhere and encounter a severe storm, and you were out there. It was just you and the storm.
Right.
Now you've got your phone. You can call somebody. Hey, honey, there's a storm coming. It's on the way. It's coming straight at the house. Get in the basement.
Well, and with the apps today, I mean, apps have changed everything when it comes to weather, because that is, to me, that's my competition now. To some degree, is the apps. Everybody's got an app now.
Well, and of course, we've embraced it. Channel 3 has WBCK.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon's sending out alerts on our app, and that's a way to get that information when you need it, which is now.
And that's a good thing. I think what you have to do, though, is you have to see, okay, well, how can we, for example, the broadcasting business, radio, TV, how can we integrate our message in with this new technology? Because you're not going to battle it. You're not going to fight it. And that's okay. I mean, how can you add to what people are getting on their phones and getting with their apps?
Right.
Because the apps are valuable, and people have come to depend on them. And a lot of times, I mean, it's a good thing. And like you said, you embrace it. You have your apps. We have our app. You know what I mean? And so, and then you build on that.
Yeah, man, and it's so great too. One thing that an app really can't do, and that the internet can't really do, is when it hits the fan and it's like a midnight and there's terrible storms everywhere. You guys are on live wall to wall,
right? And
with your staff. How many people have you got on staff there?
We have 4 in the weather office. We have 4 on our staff, and so that helps us to stay on it 24/7. And I do believe that the personal touch is something that people still long for. I think that people still are, I don't want to say long for, but they still seek. And it is a lot better to hear somebody telling you and showing you what's going on. I mean, yeah, you could get it on an app, but you still, I think, want that human perspective. You want to hear a voice. You want to know that there's somebody who is looking at this just like you are, and here's their sort of expert opinion. Last night when I got home, sort of geeking out just a little bit, I watched for far too long, because knowing I had to get up this morning to come in here, I watched for far too long some of the coverage from a television station that was one of our sister stations down in Jefferson City, and watched their tornado coverage. And again, I think as I'm watching it, I'm trying to remind myself, if you're a viewer, how important that is sometimes to just hear that voice and to know that somebody is watching this.
Sure.
And not only to tell you when to go to the basement, perhaps, but also to tell you when it's okay to come back out of the basement.
And then also, I think when TV stations and radio stations are hiring people to do this kind of work, you have to think about how they're going to be able to deliver that. Are they going to be like in a panic? Are they going to be scatterbrained? How are they going to be under pressure? Because you guys need to be cool, calm, and collected, and here are the facts, and here's what's going on, and you guys do a really great job.
Well, I appreciate that very much. There is honestly no better compliment that I can hear from someone than when they say, hey, when the storms are around, I tune to you because I appreciate your calm demeanor and the fact that you're not freaking out, that you're not panicking.
Yeah.
To me, there's no better compliment than that, because I feel like as a public service, which broadcasting is, it's serving the public. I feel that is the best compliment that you can get, is from someone who says, I tune to you whenever times are bad, because that's what you're there for. And so that's the best thing I feel like I can hear.
Well, Keith Thompson, we appreciate you being here bright and early this morning, even though it's out of your schedule. We'll have to have you back when you hit that 60th year.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good. Well, that's what I said. I was talking to somebody about it earlier. I said, I don't know if I can make it another 30. I don't know if I have that much in the tank, but there's still some fuel in the tank. You know how you'd shake the lawnmower to see if there's still any gas in there.
Yeah.
There's still some gas in the tank. I don't know how much, but there's enough to go for a little while.
Yeah, you still have kids that are growing up. So
That's what I say. As
a while.
long as I have kids in school, believe me, I need that paycheck. But thank you so much for having me, by the way. I appreciate it very much. And I love being here because I love radio. I worked in radio before television.
Right, yeah.
And
did college radio?
I did college radio, and radio helped to pay some of my bills while I was in college. Did a little professional radio, did a Saturday, Sunday morning shift at a country music station there back in the vinyl days. To pay some bills. So
I never had to spend a dime on a makeup kit.
That's true.
Which now you guys spend like $1,000 on.
Well, someone would say I should spend more.
Keith Thompson, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much.